Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. So, in today's episode, we're actually going to be turning this fission reactor on. But before we do that, there are few things that I want to do. So, first things first, I want to actually go through the ports that you need to actually configure in order for this thing to properly work. So, as I indicated, you needed to place down 4 ports inside of your the basic framework for your fission reactor in order for it to function. This right here is the input port, and this is going to put in fissile fuel. Go across on this side now. This port here, now just bear in mind any of these ports can be in any side, but this is just the side that I've chosen. On this side here, you have a waste output port, and this is responsible for basically getting the nuclear waste out of your reactor. Currently, I have this running to a ultimate pressurized tube, and because of the space, it actually is capable of holding it for a little bit. Eventually, we will be processing this into polonium pellets and so forth. But for now, this port is just simply going to function as that. Now, in the back here, to the bottom, we have the output of our coolant. So, when this fission reactor is turned on, it will produce superheated sodium, and that needs to basically leave this entire reactor, and that's exactly what it's doing through this port right here. That carries it across into a boiler, which we will get to momentarily. Now, above that here, we have the input port. And the reason why we need to have an input port is because as we are exporting or sending out the superheated sodium, we need to get it right back in order to create a closed loop system. Now, currently, I am actually still producing the sodium that we need. That's why we have this adjacent pipe here connected to these machines. Otherwise, these machines will probably be removed once I've accumulated enough sodium. Now, in our boiler, we again have 4 ports here. On this side, we have the input, and the input is basically matched out to the output of the superheated coolant. So that's why we have this pressurized tube here connecting to our output from our fissile reactor, running straight into the input. And this is responsible basically for sending that superheated sodium into this boiler, and that is then basically used to heat up the water and create steam. Now, at the pressure dispersers level, we have to put down the second boiler valve. And this valve is going to be the output for the coolant. What coolant? Well, it's going to be sending back the cooled or the chilled or the normal sodium back into our fissile reactor. Hence the reason why these two are connected. Now, this has to be at the pressure dispersal level. If I'm not mistaken, if you put it anywhere else, I don't think it'll actually work. But I could be wrong on that. But still. So, hence the reason why these two are connected, as they are. So that's some of the connections. Now let's move to the back. Now, our boiler currently is getting heat and is cooling the sodium and then sending it back out. So, that heat creates a steam. Now, we need to extract the steam. Now, I have it at the pressure dispersal level, yet again. This next boiler valve. And this boiler valve basically extracts the heat, well, the steam, sorry, not the heat, the steam, and pushes it into our turbine in the back over here, which it taps into another turbine valve over here. And that introduces the steam into our turbine. Now, the turbine is going to actually use that steam in order to run. Once it's condensed and cool down that steam, it needs a place to basically send the liquid back out, because that's what's going to happen when it cools down the steam. So at any point in your turbine vents, you can attach a mechanical pipe and pipe that water all the way back into the last port right here, which is another input port for our boiler. And this is basically an input for water. So let me just go skim over that process again. The fissile reactor needs to have an input for fuel and an input on top here for the cooled versions of the coolant. That coolant that is introduced into the system is basically used to cool down the fissile reactor rods, which evidently heat them up and is exported through this coolant output valve into our boiler. Our boiler cools down the sodium and sends it right back into our reactor. Our boiler also produces steam, which is then sent into our turbine. Our turbine uses that steam to produce power, and then that steam is then condensed and used and piped right back into our boiler. So this way we can have a closed system. Now there's one last valve that I needed to mention, and that is this valve over here. Now unfortunately my system's actually kind of running out, but I'll fix that in a bit. This last valve is responsible for basically getting the power out of our turbine. So if we click onto it, we can see that it has a massive buffer zone, but in order to actually get that power out, well, you need to actually have a valve, and from that valve you can just take some basic or all the way up to ultimate universal cables. Now these two quantum entangler portals are just here for temporary purposes because they only have a small buffer zone. So I can actually show you what happens now that if I go and turn this on. Remember, I have a place for our waste to go with, so it's not going to be backed up, and our system is already closed and has enough coolant as well as enough water in our boiler for it to function. So if we go into it, this is the UI for it. Now I'm going to set this as 1, and we're going to activate, and our reactor is going to start up. Now this reactor is kind of loud, so I'm probably going to have to lower this down in post. But so now our reactor is going to reduce the sodium a little bit. Right now this is about the amount that it's hovering at, and it's going to constantly be burning our fissile fuel. But with that, you can see our turbine is slowly starting to spin, and you can see our water has gone down a bit, and we are basically at the maximum boil rate. And again, our turbine is slowly spinning. But let's take a look at our power. So now we can see our power is slowly but surely being added into each of these quantum entangler portals. But we need a proper place to store this, which, well, that's exactly what we're going to work on right now, so this way we can run this fission reactor. Now, to note, you can actually increase the speed of this, so, well, increase the burn rate of this. So now we've set it at 2, and if we check our coolant and see the levels at which it's remaining at, and our fuel. Now, if somehow there is some sort of break in the system or some way, let's say a chunk doesn't load or something like that happens, you run the risk of blowing up your reactor. Basically, if this damage, where is it, over here, hits 100, your reactor will explode, and it will leak radioactive material in a pretty significant area, and that radioactive material will kill you. It will take some time to dissipate, but it does dissipate over time. But let's be real, we don't want to blow up our reactor, because all of this entire area here will be completely destroyed, and a lot of blocks will be, eradicated, basically. So keep an eye on your damage, and keep an eye on your temperature and your coolant and so forth, because once this coolant basically goes down to 0, let's say something is keeping our coolant from returning back to our machine, the temperature will slowly but surely rise quickly, and that is what actually causes damage to your rods. So try to keep that, to a minimum. With that, you can adjust your burn rates, and your burn rates can, is what's actually going to affect your coolant here. Right now I have it on 2, but eventually I will increase this once I actually have a place to actually store this power. Okay, so now that we're sure that, let me actually check this back in the back here, and you'll see what I mean why we need to have a place to store this. Okay, so you can see these two quantum entangler portals are getting filled up pretty quickly, and well, the cable is going to have a lot of space, but that's because I run that cable to actually where I'm setting up today's multi-block. So let's actually go down and set this multi-block up. Okay, we're looking good. Okay, let's hop down here. So we are actually going to be utilizing the induction casing. Now, if we take a look at this and see what we need to make this is relatively simple. You just need some steel ingots and an energy tablet, which, doesn't seem that bad. You're gonna need quite a few of these, actually. I built a stack, but a stack is probably a little bit overkill. But because this is relatively inexpensive, you can probably afford a stack at this point. Now the induction ports, I don't think I have a thing for this, so let me actually search this up. The induction port also should be relatively simple and easy to afford, and you only just need 2 of these induction ports. The most expensive thing is actually going to be these induction cells and the induction providers, because they start to compound on each other. Furthermore, they also require lithium dust. Now, I didn't go over this, but I did actually also set up another thermal evaporation plant. And in this thermal evaporation plant, similar to the other one, we have, water going to one of our thermal evaporation plants, and we have the heater running to both of them. And the heater is actually powered from both of the advanced solar panels. Now, the reason why I have water running to one is because we don't actually want this from both of them to actually be producing brine. We want one of them alone to be producing brine. So as you can see, it takes water and produces the brine. Then this brine, instead of this brine being piped into a tank or some sort of buffer zone for our fission reactor, or just basically storage for the brine, it's actually piped straight across into the other thermal evaporation plant. And this takes the brine and produces liquid lithium. Now, you need to convert this liquid lithium into a gas. So that's why you're going to need a rotary concentrator, and you're going to need to switch it to deconcentrating. Now, currently I have this turned off, but once I go through the processes, I'll actually turn it back on, well, by giving it power for you guys to see what's going to happen. So it's going to take that liquid lithium and produce just standard lithium. And that lithium then goes into a chemical crystallizer. So it's going to get the lithium filled up here. As you can see, we have 5 millibuckets alone in there. And once everything has power, it'll actually process that and give us the lithium dust that you need for every level of your induction cells. And I believe your induction providers also need this lithium dust. So you're going to need quite a good bit of it. So I'm just going to put this on for you to see what's actually going to happen. So again, liquid lithium turns into standard lithium. That lithium is then added into a chemical crystallizer, and it's going to process it and give us the lithium dust. Now, for simplicity, I have this connected to an importer all the way, which is connected all the way back over there to our wireless receiver, just so this way we can wirelessly transfer and import everything into our refined storage system. And that's actually how you're going to get yourself some lithium. Now, again, you're going to need quite a bit of it. I already had this running, so that's why, this is already connected, and I actually have the cells built. So let me go back down below, because I think that's about all we have to go through for that. Let's go down. For now, that's all we're going to do with that liquid lithium. Turn it into lithium dust. Eventually, in the future, there is another purpose for it, so even if when you hit your maximum amount that you need, let's say you build the ultimate versions, you don't tear it down, there's another purpose for that. So yeah, in the future I'll actually be modifying that. So back to the induction cells and the induction providers. These are where it's going to get very expensive to actually start making these things, because as you can see, it builds on the previous one. So you can see this advanced induction cells needs 4 basic induction cells, and then the elite version also needs 4 of these advanced induction cells, and then the last tier, which is the ultimate one, needs 4 of those elite induction cells. And every single one of these cells has to be crafted, so it can be very resource intensive, so bear that in mind. Now I'm just going to be using a basic induction cell as well as a basic induction provider. Now for the provider, it's not as bad, because go through, you can see, yes, it's needs the basic one, but it's not so bad, because you're only going to need 1 of these induction providers. You don't need multiple, you just need 1 of these. But the induction cells, in order to grow the capacity of the battery, you need to craft multiple of these. For now we can get by with 1, but as time goes on, we're definitely going to need... Let me go back up and actually shut this reactor off. Now realize that this is actually going to power. Let me see something quickly. Okay, so both of them are full, and well, our cable is completely filled. We take a look, we can see the buffer zone of our turbine is actually starting to go up. So with that in mind, let me just shut this off and return before I blow up my reactor. But that there is the reason why we need to build this induction battery, basically. Because if our cables max out on power and whatever we're using maxes out on utilizing the doesn't max out, has enough power stored, the turbine's gonna back up, and when the turbine backs up, everything here backs up, and then this goes kaboom. So make sure you actually have these things ready to build before you actually really start running your reactor unattended. Right, as I was saying, this one isn't as bad. Yes, it still requires a good bit of resources, but again, you only need one of these. So let's actually get down into placing it. Now, I'm just gonna, for show purposes, just show you the smallest one. You're gonna need to do a 3x4 area, if I'm not mistaken, because then we can put 2 ports. This is the smallest that you can actually make this. Now, I'm not gonna be making the smallest one. So you're gonna need to put your 2 induction ports on top of a base. This is 4 wide by 3. This is a 4x3. And you're gonna go like something like this, and then do a top layer like so, and then you're gonna put your induction provider first and then your induction cell, and then you're gonna cap this off, and there you see it can be formed. So this is the smallest induction, I can't remember what this is called properly. This is the smallest induction matrix, that's what it's called. This is the smallest induction matrix that you can actually produce. It is a 4x3 high by 3 wide block. Now, as I said, this is not what I'm going to actually be doing. I didn't configure the ports because, again, this isn't the size that I'm going to be making. So let me start setting up the base. Again, it's going to be 3 wide. I don't think I have a wand, sadly. And it's going to be stretching in between from there. Alright, that's the last one. Now, one good thing about the induction casing, you're going to need to put on all 4 corners your induction casing, but you can also utilize structural glass in building this. Let me just, reshuffle along stuff. So, just now, this is just purely for decorative purposes, so this way you can actually see your induction cells inside of there. Oh, give me that back. Let's move the garage mode. Right. We're going to put back an induction port there and an induction port there. Now, this one, you don't really have to configure it. This one, you're going to click on it, and it's just going to be set that to output. Now, you're going to put your induction provider, whichever tier you decided to build, first, and then your induction cell. It is perfectly fine to have air in these cells. You don't need to fill it in. You can leave it empty. And then to cap this off, we're going to just do back our induction casings like so. And you can see it formed, and well, we can see right through and see each of our induction cells as we add them on. Bear in mind, again, you only need one induction provider, and that again has to be right behind your induction port. Now, if we click into it, we can see that the energy is actually being accumulated into our induction matrix. And then, if I were to bring down those quantum entangler porters, yes, I have some universal cables. Let me just attach it like so, like there. If I were to go up into right here, and grab me each of these quantum entangler porters. Come back down here. And we can set them down like so, and then set back to power. So now each of these are going to be constantly provided with power from our induction matrix. And this is going to act as a buffer zone for our power, which we didn't have prior to this. So now we can actually safely kind of turn on our reactor, but it's not too safe because we're not doing anything with the nuclear waste. Right now I have it, again, accumulating in this pipe. So that is actually going to be the second target for today's episode. Handling this nuclear waste, which, let's take a look. So to handle the nuclear waste, what I'm actually going to do, well, you can actually pipe this into radioactive barrels, and this will slowly but surely dissipate it. and, convert the nuclear waste into, not nuclear waste. It's going to be safe, but it does so at a slow rate. And let's be real, there's actual uses for radioactive waste in mechanism. And that's first, one of those uses is actually going to be utilizing a solar neutron activator. Because if we click on that, we can see that nuclear waste is actually used to create polonium, and polonium can be used to create polonium pellets, and that in turn can be utilized to create the mecha suit, which is kind of important, which is something that I've actually wanted. But in order to create this, the bonds is something that I don't think we've touched, and nor the HDPE sheet. So to get the bonds, I personally utilized an induction smelter, just use some tin and some copper to get me the bonds. Not that hard. HDEP pellet or sheet is made from pellets, and this pellets, you get it from taking liquid ethylene, which we're actually producing. So that's the kind of the reason why I wanted to actually reach to this state, so this way I don't have to rely on our ethylene production setup over there. And combining that with oxygen as well as the substrate that I've been storing for quite some time, and we're going to convert that into HDPE pellet in a pressurized reaction chamber. So this is what I'm gonna build this, and probably just jump cut to when I've actually built this. Okay, so some time has passed and I actually already crafted the solar neutron activator, which is over here. But one thing I'll actually like to go through is actually how to get this HDPE sheet. So, as you guys remember, over here is where we actually have our ethylene being generated and produced using the biofuel. So I simply came behind right here, attached a tank, then use the XNet controller right here to route ethylene into that tank as well as our gas burning generator. Now, once our tank had enough in it, I simply just remove or broke the tank and brought it over here, where it's placed, and it's outputting the ethylene into a rotary condensator that is set to condensating. And this is going to turn our ethylene into liquid ethylene. This is then ejected into our pressurized reaction chamber, which is getting oxygen from the electrolytic separator set below it. Once we input any substrate, it'll actually convert it into our HDPE pellet, and it'll give us the oxygen, which I have that oxygen being sent out into this tank over here just as storage. And well, I figured since I have this electrolytic separator set up here, I might as well, have this tank set up right next to it just to fill in a gap to collect any hydrogen that we may need. Now, let's go back across and finish the setup, because I did not, finish piping everything out. I wanted to wait to do that on camera. Okay, so now that we're over here, this is the setup that we're using. We have our solar neutron activator set on top, clear skies, access to sunlight. And we're gonna have the nuclear waste coming in on this pipe here that's set below it. I have it disconnected from our quantum entangler porter on both sides, just in case it, decided it wanted to attach itself, and then it was sort of away. And internally, I also configured it to not have any inputs on these sides. So this pipe here is what's going to actually bring the nuclear waste from our reactor. I did not finish connecting it because I wanted to wait to do it on camera. When it is finished, the solar neutron activator, I'm going to pump it out from the front and right here into our pressurized reaction chamber, which is already getting water from this end tank. And once it gets the polonium from the solar neutron activator, we can then give it this fluoride dust, and it's going to give us, well, the spent nuclear waste, which if we take a look back here, alright, so with the fluoride dust, it's going to give us the polonium pellet as well as the spent nuclear waste. Now, the spent nuclear waste, I accidentally forgot to bring the barrels, but we're going to actually craft some radioactive barrels. Let me go grab that, actually, so I can actually just set down 1 or 2, just for, show purposes. Later on, I can always come back and add more. Okay, grab that. Okay. So that radioactive the spent nuclear waste is then going to be sent out of the front of our pressurized reaction chamber and down to the next pipe. So let me go down below and show you what I'm talking about. Let's go down. Okay, so here you can see we have two pipes, two gas pipes. One is immediately underneath the floor and one is about a block difference in height. So the bottommost one is the one that's actually going to connect to the nuclear waste. So we can actually do that right now. Now you want to be very careful when setting these things up, because if you break any of these pipes, you're in for basically radiation poison. So be very careful when breaking these pipes. I suggest not even breaking the pipe, just disconnecting the pipe. But here you can see it's actually being all pushed out and going into our solar neutron activator. And then it's going to come down through the front of our PLC once it's done. Going to come make its way journey through all of this pipe. Right here is where I'm going to set up a radioactive waste barrel, and that's going to be responsible for basically converting that spent nuclear waste and dispersing it. So again, let's go up top. Let's just see if everything's working out. Okay, we actually are full on polonium. So it did basically do the work quickly for us. We have a lot of polonium there, and we are actually full on it. So now we're going to let the PLC here do its work. And we're going to get the polonium pellets, and well, the spent nuclear waste, like I said, is going to go pump out and go all the way into that radioactive barrel. Just eat some baked potatoes. Yeah, I'm finally eating something that's not bread. And well, this is going to do its thing. I can get some speed upgrades, so yeah, I think I'm just going to go quickly go grab that. Let's go grab speed. Oh, that's not how you spell speed. Let's go grab the 8. Should have just typed it. Real quick, also to off camera, I ended up changing out the basic induction provider, because one important thing that I forgot to mention as well, you can see the maximum output rate that this thing can do. This is the input and this is the output, meaning this is the maximum amount that it can transfer to your cells, whatever cells you choose to go with, and this is the maximum amount that it can push out through cables. And this is not good at all. Like, really not good. That rate is very bad, especially for large scale power, because as you were seeing, we had a lot of power just backed up in the cable, so much so that it was even backing up into our turbine, which is not good. Alright, so that's actually finished. So we have 16 polonium pellets. Just now I'm going to turn back on that reactor. So yeah, now everything's cleared. And if we go back down, you'll see the upgrade that I made. Let's quickly hop back down here. Right, you can see I actually ended up putting the ultimate induction one inside of here. And well, we're getting more power in as well, more power out of it. Currently we don't have much going out, but our input can be much larger than it once was. So with that done, I think that's about it for this episode. We accomplished quite a bit. We got our nuclear reactor, or fissile reactor, fully operational. Let me just see what's going on here. Let's just, we are good now. So we got this fully, operational. It's actually running. Our turbine's starting to spin at higher rates. It will spin faster. Like, let's see what we can actually get this to. Right now it's on 3. Let's just jump to 5. It's fluctuating but not going down. We are burning more. Is our turbine looking not that fast? Okay, let's change it out again. It's not 190. Let's go 10. Still good. My heat's not going up. This will deplete faster. That's fine. Ooh, the water is almost gone. I'm gonna have to add more water to this. But yeah, our turbine's gonna start spinning faster and faster. But let me just slow this back down. Safer rate, but I know it's good. But with this, basically running and operational, we found a way to deal with our nuclear waste, which is our solar neutron activator. That's converting this into polonium pellets for now. Eventually, there is another way, there is another method that you can utilize your waste, which I think you need it for the SPSS, if I'm not mistaken. Polonium. Yeah, that's if you want to do the SPSS casing. But I'm not sure if I'll actually do that in this series. And well, again, we have a way to get our polonium pellets, which actually means we can get ourselves really soon the mecha suit, because this requires, well, whew, that's a big price there. But yeah, we should be able to actually get our mecha suit relatively soon. Maybe even that's okay. That's 4. That's 6. Oh, that's 8. Oh. Okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna end off the episode building this really quick. I'm just gonna go and craft all the things that we need for it, and I'll be back then. Okay, so I've crafted a good bit of the HDPE sheets, as well as the smithing table. So let's just put this right here. Let's put this there. Let's get ourselves the netherite stuff. So now we have a full cover me in debris. I'm not really sure where this comes from. Oh, gold jetpack. Okay, that's cool. So now we can actually go and craft the mecha suit, and you'll see how cool this is. That's another one. That's the chest. Let's do the legs. Oh, I should just put this in there, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should have done that. All that's left is the legs. Yeah, the pants. There we go. So, exit out of that, we can take all of this off. We can put this on. Now, unfortunately, we can't do much with this, but let me just check here. Wrong place. The charging stand, where is it? Ah, there it is. Charge button. Okay. That's something that we're going to deal with in another episode, but we take a look at ourselves. Ooh, don't we look cool? This has got to be one of the best looking armor sets that Minecraft, well, modded Minecraft has. The detail. Ooh, this is so cool. Okay. So I think that's gonna be it for this episode. Next episode I'm probably gonna actually do some draconic evolution. But for this episode, like I said, or like I was saying before I got distracted by the fact that I could make this armor, we got our reactor running, fully operational. We also handled sorting out the waste for it. And we also got, go down, back again. We got this fully operational, a place to store our power. So thank you all for watching, and take care. Bye bye now.